Hey people, getting around to starting to trimming these guinomi that I trimmed the other or made the other day, and trying to decide which ones to trim and which ones not to trim. And I think this one is a no trimmer actually. Uh, See these? They have a nice thread mark on the cutoff, and if the bottom's just small enough in diameter in relation to the cup, I kind of like to knock it in just a little bit just to make sure there's not going to be any wobble. Knock off the high spots, and there. I'll leave that one as is. And some people are probably going, well, why wouldn't you trim a foot on a cup? And it goes to, I guess, one of the earlier Facebook posts I had about these types of cups called Yamahai or Yamasakazuki that are basically cups from, several hundred years ago. And they were sort of the equivalent of what we would think of today probably as like Dixie cups or something like that. They were not precious. They didn't spend a lot of time making them, and when they did make them, they made a lot all at once. Mainly for like big groups of people that are just going to sit around drinking and maybe breaking cups. So they're nothing special really, right? And so I thought I would make some in sort of that, along that vein of work. And if anybody's familiar with sort of let's see, what's a good example? So Edo tea bowls, which are sort of considered to be the pinnacle of tea bowl for sort of wabi sabi, sort of the wabi sabi aesthetic for tea. These Edo tea bowls that are so famous are really basic. It's like a basic bowl form when you're throwing something on the wheel. But just monumentally difficult to get right because they have to have a feeling of life. They have to feel like they're just sort of bursting upward. And to get that right amount of life in it with the minimal trimming and the minimal throwing is really hard. And so this one I went ahead and trimmed because I didn't think it would make a good sort of Yamahai form. And here I just, just some simple tiny bit of trimming, once out around the outside and once along the inside. Anyway, to get back to these bowls, so these Yamahai, which were, they made thousands and thousands of them, and for me, a lot of people may not like them. For me, it's just sort of a personal fetish, I think. But I like them. I like that sort of really simple idea, and there. And I love the messy slip finger marks on the outside, and all this stuff, and then the glaze just kind of slopped on so that it's not covering everything and running a bit. And yeah, they can be really charming little pieces, but they're really, well, at least for me, they're incredibly difficult to throw or make. And like I had posted a couple days ago, I posted some sort of cereal ice cream bowl sort of things with, they're very bellied, proportioned. They've got a nice rolled rim. They're light. I've trimmed the feet so that they're balanced. I find those so much easier to make than than throwing a good mass-produced Dixie cup. This one I went ahead and decided to trim. I'm going to give it a low foot. So all these they're a little bit different. I didn't try to make everything the same, so you'll see me doing slightly different trimming on different cups depending on what I felt like the form required. Anyway, again, once or twice on the outside, once on the inside, and it's pretty much done. And when these were thrown, I tried to sort of imitate what I imagined this guy 400 years ago would be doing if he's throwing a bunch of cups and has got to finish a few hundred in a day or a few thousand in a week or something like that. He's just going through as quick as he can with as much economy of movement as he probably had, and he was probably really good at doing these. Here's one that's got a really nice slip booger there that I want to keep. This one maybe I'll try to keep it as a... You just don't want to have any sharp edges, so I'm just knocking those down a little bit. And then again, the old ones, they didn't knock the foot in at all. So some of them have a bit of a wobble. Just for modern times, I'm just kind of trying to avoid that a bit, and just give it a tiny bit of a concave bit there, so that it'll sit flat. And yeah. Anyway, yeah, so when I throw these, it's a thumb on the inside. Excuse me, I got a bit of a cough. It's a thumb on the inside and a finger on the outside when I'm throwing. Just one hand with... I'm sure these guys probably made them with one or two pulls, just one after the other, repeatedly. Dozens in an hour. And I'm not that good. I can't make them that fast. I usually use 3 or 4 pulls to make one. And I've been struggling with them for years. Still struggling, although this last round of making them that I was doing, I finally felt like I might be making some progress, actually, which was nice for a change. Another one, same way. And then these will get fired with either just a sort of a milky white glaze, maybe a clear glaze that's a little fired at a lower temperature. I'm going to do some of them in the gas kiln this next week, because I have a little show that I want to get ready for, a couple little shows, but I'm going to save most of them for the wood kiln, because that's where they really come out, with the bare clay and the uneven glaze covering. That's where they really come out looking nice when they succeed. Anyway, so here this is my basic trimming technique for anything really, for bowls, for cups, is once around again, knock down the sharp edges there a little bit, and then once on the inside should do it, really. And I say this in workshops when I go around, things like that, is I try to throw the pots so that they don't need a bunch of trimming, and it's mostly because I'm lazy. I don't like to recycle clay. And let's see, let's get some light in there. Anyway, yeah, I don't like recycling clay. It takes a lot of work to make the clay in the first place, because most of it's collected. And so this is the conservative approach to trimming. You throw it with the idea that you don't really want to spend a lot of time dealing with your trimmings. And a lot of people have different solutions to their trimmings. Some places, I guess, sell so many pots and do so well that they just toss their old clay. They just get rid of it. I can't do that. It's too much work in the first place to make the clay when you collect it, and way more expensive time-wise than buying clay. And so I really like to throw with the mindset that I'm not going to have to trim a bunch of excess clay off, and still keeping the pot light. We'll trim this one. Like I said, everybody has different thoughts on that, and in most cases I would say nobody is really wrong about it either. It all depends on what kind of clay you use, what kind of outcome you're trying to achieve. I'm trying to preserve what's in this clay because that's really got it slipping on the wheel here, but that's okay. Just kind of adjust. That's one nice thing about trimming slowly is you can adjust as you go. If it slips on the chuck, you just follow it with your hand and you're good. There, and that's one turn inside and a couple turns outside at different angles. One turn at two different angles. Anyway, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Robert Yellen. He's I think his website's name is JapanesePottery.com. Anyway, he sells a lot of very nice pottery from I think primarily from, or exclusively from, potters in Japan, and a lot of famous potters actually. And he posted a really nice Yamahai the other day on his Instagram feed. There was a Madara Karatsu piece, and Madara Karatsu is a glaze that's it's a milky or clear glaze, high in silica with rice husk ash or some other plant, high silica plant matter, and it goes milky or mottled white, or clear where it's thin. So it's got a lot happening in it when you get it on the right clay and the right textures. And he posted one of those that was a repaired piece. I don't know if anybody's familiar. Probably most of you have heard of kintsugi because it's sort of all the rage now on the internet, where you repair something with gold, stick it back together and repair it. And one of these pieces was a real extreme example of a kintsugi repaired sake cup, because it wasn't just put back together. There were pieces missing, and somebody had done yobitsugi, which is actually taking pieces from a different cup and put them in the spaces and made them fit. And so it was basically the same glaze but fired in a different kiln, obviously, and or a different firing. And so this cup had this beautiful glaze to begin with, and then the pieces that were attached and filled in was a slightly different version of that glaze, and just gorgeous. And it sort of reawakened my fetish, which I had forgotten for a year or two, and I decided to throw a few of these. And here I'm doing a little. This is a sake cup for drunk people. Yeah. Put some marks on the outside here to make it a little less likely for fingers to slip when you're holding it, but mostly decorative. Anyway, he posted this piece, and I really liked it, and it got me in the mood to try and throw something like that. And so I sat down, and I think I threw 61 in a couple hours, just going as fast as I could. And now this is what I'm trimming, and I'm almost halfway through here. I think we're at 4 boards worth, and I'm most of the way through with the second board here. And here. There it goes again. Oh, I might have torn. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, I was worried that I kind of tore through the bottom on that one, but it's thin, but still okay. All right. And this clay is Yamahai clay, which is an area where there was an old kiln located in the Karatsu area. And it's real, I don't know how to describe it. It's less like clay and more like wet flour. It's not very plastic, and it's kind of pasty, I guess is a good way to describe it. And usually when you trim it, you get some pretty good texture. I'm not getting great texture out of this. Probably, maybe I'm trimming a little bit too dry at this point. I did add some weathered porcelain gravel in that's kind of contaminated with iron. And then, you know, when I hit it here, the rim is still damp, so it's not cracking, but also it's soft, so now it's not perfectly round either. That's okay. That's the aesthetic I'm looking for with these types of cups, so I'm happy with that. And then it boils down to whether you can find somebody to buy them. Well, whether they come out nice to begin with, and then you can find a customer. So you can make more, you can spend money and make more. And yeah, I found that with the guinomi, generally the minimal feet tends to work best. The more you play around with them. You saw when it slipped before, I didn't try to go back and fix the trim or retrim or anything like that, because usually that just messes it up worse. This one doesn't want to, there it goes. And then I've got a chuck here that's a fired chuck with a piece of cloth, fine weave cloth stretched over the top, and sometimes it'll leave a few marks here on the inside. And my friend Craig Edwards in Minnesota calls that chuck rash, which I always think is just hilarious. I don't know if anybody knows Craig, but he's one of those guys that you can just be talking and just in conversation, he just comes out with these dry one-liners that just have your guts busting. Alright. So this one's not even centered, but that's okay. Just go slow. You can keep up with it. So now I've been talking, and I'm pretty sure that this video is going to end up being officially too long for YouTube or Facebook or any of these things, but I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to edit it down and post it at some point. Maybe I'll split it into 2. Okay, that's board number 2. Here they are. Getting ready for board number 3. Anyway, I hope that was informative in one way or another, and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.